Hey, welcome back to Ready State. Recently, we've had a couple posts talking about shoes, and it developed a lot of conversation about which shoe is appropriate for me in the moment. So these aren't hard and fast rules, but this is how we think about it. One of the things that we have come to see as the shoe fashion world has gone through the roof, and certainly with the maximal cushioning shoe, is that we believe that people's feet are weak. Like, your feet are weak. And the chances are, if you look at some of the work by some of the best coaches, and a good example of this is Cal Dietz right now of triphasic training, spends a lot of time making sure his athletes have very, very robust feet. And I'm not talking about just running barefoot, but making sure that the foot itself is intrinsically very, very strong and very, very capable. To that effect, what we have to ask ourselves is, well, could I be barefoot all the time? And the answer is, I can't. It's too cold, it's unsanitary, you're gonna step on dog poop, whatever. So the next question is, what's the best way to improve foot function in terms of the context of what we're using? So here's a couple examples. One is, this is my run around shoe. I put a really thin insole in here. It's like 0. It doesn't have any cushion or support because otherwise my feet stink. I don't wear socks. I try to go barefoot as much as I can. I'm in the gym, I'm lucky. And I obsess over foot position and foot strength. I've got a balance beam in my kitchen, a little block that I spend a bunch of time on. One of my favorite new toys is called the slack block, and it's just basically a hard piece of wood on some foam. Simulates a slack line. I've got a slack line in the backyard, we've got a slack line here. I'm always working on my foot positioning, foot mechanics, foot health, period. Okay, when I train, full caveat, I'm sponsored by Reebok. I take the insole out of the shoe. This has, I think, 5mm differential. I think that in a training shoe, a couple things. One is, is it compressing your foot? Notice that the Reebok shoe does not have a big ramp angle in the front. It allows us to kind of stay flat. If you look at the Metcon, it doesn't have a big ramp angle, which means it's not difficult to put your toe down. I think Noble, Metcon, this shoe, the Nano, all are roughly within 3 to 5mm. Even the original Innovate that we all liked a million years ago was, I think, a 3mm differential, one arrow. And I suspect it doesn't really matter when you're training. Just doesn't. But the key is, probably more importantly, is the durometer of the shoe. So is this shoe giving me some support? Yes. Is this shoe giving me enough? And durometer is a measure of hardness. This shoe is actually fairly hard, and when I take the insole out, it becomes even harder, which means I'm getting better energy transfer, and I'm not trying to necessarily cushion or absorb, right? So how much cushion do I need? Enough cushion that my feet don't stone bruise in this thing. More importantly, though, is we're looking at a training shoe, all-around shoe that I can lift with and cut with and do things with, is I need a shoe that's torsionally stiff, that when I move to the side, the shoe doesn't gush, it doesn't give me strange input and feedback. It allows me to screw into the ground and create stability laterally. And what you'll see is that the running shoe was developed for forward motion. And so if you are landing, great. It probably doesn't even really matter what running shoe you're in, just how much durometer you're in, especially if you're running like a human being. If you're not slamming your heel into the ground, you're running like you would barefoot, or you're running like you were sprinting. You would be all relatively in the same position running, right? Somewhere striking not in the heel, but in this section of your foot, depending on angle and surface, et cetera, et cetera. But what we see is that the shoe gives a lot of very strange input into the ground. So if you take the insole out of your shoe and your insole is a 1/2 inch thick, this is a problem, right? You're not getting a lot of great input, and the ground reaction force is going to be attenuated. So it's going to take a second for you to actually find the springiness and the connection through that connect chain. Is this shoe look good with jeans? Yes. Is this a shoe I should be wearing all the time? Probably not. It's a training shoe, right? The Olympic lifting shoe is very, very hard. So one of the things that the Chinese have done a great job with by pushing this design, I know you Adidas fans out there, the Nike was an incredible shoe that really pushed the boundary of stability. I think they were working with some of the Chinese lifters. Could be wrong. My Chinese shoe weightlifting history may be off. But one of the things that this shoe allows you to do, because of this flat form on the bottom, is that you can push and create so much lateral stability before the shoe falls over. One of the things you'll see as we move towards sort of like, what's another great shoe? An indoor soccer shoe, is that you can create a lot of lateral motion before the shoe wants to flip over on itself. It'll go and 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 go, and by the time you're here, it still doesn't want to flip over. You'll see that a lot of other shoes, as you get in there and sort of wobble back and forth, are really giving you some strange input. The Olympic lifting shoe ends up creating a really stable platform, and that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to be able to manage this kind of torsion load, lateral movement load, and then also very, very hard. The durometer of this shoe, you're getting 100% energy transfer, and that's by design. If you look at some of these original shoes, they were sort of wood blocks in here, and you're getting all of that energy transfer instantaneously, which is interesting, right? Because the Olympic lift just figured out that, hey, if we wanted to receive and land and be able to capture all the fascial springiness and have those integrations, these Olympic lifting shoes are brutal and rock hard. So the question comes, hey, I want to do a lot of things. Do I need to always use a lifting shoe for lifting? Probably not. And if you get into a good training shoe, whatever you can afford, what's environmentally, whatever your system or your team is using, from all the power derivatives, from all the traditional trainings, what we're really looking for is that a heel doesn't compress and just give you mushy feedback, right? Some of the teams we work with, rightly so, they were having some of their professional athletes were literally having battles about who had the most coolest shoes, and it was just getting out of control. So they started doing more barefoot training in their facility. I think that's valuable, getting people barefoot when you can, so you can really see what's going on. From a coaching perspective, it's hard for me to sometimes understand what's happening with foot pressure and what's happening with people's ankle position because the shoe hides it so well. But more importantly, what we're really looking at is, hey, this has a very specific outcome, which is lifting with your torso in a more upright supported position, like the things we talked about, right? If people have wretched ankle positions and wretched mechanics, giving them an Olympic lifting shoe can help them ameliorate and attenuate some of the compensation, turning the foot out, letting the arch collapse. This can give us some breathing room and keep the torso more upright. Ultimately, our goal is to expose and restore range of motion. So if this is your solution to a range of motion problem, that's sort of incomplete. What we'd like you to do is be able to say, hey, this is a tool, like a weight belt, like straps, like any other tool that allows me to do a specific task or a specific goal. I don't necessarily want to always use it as a Band-Aid or a crutch. What we're trying to do, and I think a lot of people rightfully kind of commented in the site, was, hey, shouldn't we be working on ankle range of motion and foot strength? Yes, we should absolutely be doing that. So the question is, are you doing that in your programming? How are you building strong feet? If your foot is collapsed, you're on a squishy surface, you can't keep your ankle in the middle of your foot, and then you're moving and you're seeing weak feet, and your shoe is supporting that paradigm, then we're losing some of the benefit of being out in the world and doing what we need to do. Do you need to wear Vibrams? No. Do you need to be barefoot all the time? No. But we do want you to pay attention and obsess. More, smarter, better, faster, older coaches than I have said, the ankle and the foot are hidden reserves of capacity. And I'm fairly certain it was Sean Payton of the Saints who said once, Coach Payton said, hey, when we notice that when an ankle goes on an athlete, their career is not far behind, and that they can buffer a lot of bad mechanics upstream at the knee and even the hip if they've got the ankle range of motion and have a stable position there. The Russians have said, you're as strong as your feet, right? You're as old as your feet. And what we know unequivocally is that most of us have feet that aren't functioning well as feet. So be obsessed about your feet, be strong, play around, balance. Great resources. GMB Fitness does a ton around being barefoot and moving. Look at what's going on MoveNat, all the balancing, playing. If you're lifting barefoot, training under load, it's all foot exercise. And the best way to strengthen that is to make sure that you can lunge in that position, you can hold those isometrics. Recently, we had, I think it's The Secret of Athleticism, Zhang Weili, MMA fighter, spends a lot of time working on the fascia and the strengthening of her feet in those positions. If you go back in the Instagram, you can see that. The key here is, these are all tools. What's the best tool? Sometimes the tool is looking good with jeans. Sometimes the tool is, does the shoe allow me to do the training, or is it giving me strange input? Sometimes I need to keep my torso upright and have a platform that will not tip over and have 100% energy transfer. If I was going to choose one shoe for my kids to lift in, would they be Olympic lifting shoes unless they're an Olympic lifting program? No. But it's not an accident that we do a lot of teaching from the hang and we do hang muscle snatch, hang power snatch, and in those power positions, you probably don't need a shoe. And if you already are needing an Olympic lifting shoe from some of those hang variations, push press variations, we probably have big ankle dorsiflexion, ankle foot capacity restrictions. So if you're going to be buried and stapled in the hole under heavy loads and a full snatch, sometimes having some breathing room movement options makes a difference. But the goal is to restore function and return function to the human being. The shoe is just a tool to do that. Maybe that makes it easier to help. In the meantime, hope you're looking good in your jeans and you make a better decision about your shoes. See you then.